So welcome to the October edition of the Key Ministries Disability Ministry Virtual Roundtable. So I think we have a hot topic today because a lot of people are on this Zoom. We are talking about sibling support. So when we talk about disability ministry, maybe in the children's area, what have you, we're oftentimes focusing on the individual with a disability, but we know that disability impacts the entire family. And so today we just want to talk about basically whatever you want to talk about in regards to supporting siblings. And if you've been following Key Ministry in social media, we've put out some questions and some teasers out there to get people thinking, to be thinking about this. So I would like to open it up. I know many of you are on here because this is near and dear to your heart. Perhaps you are the parent of a sibling, perhaps you are a sibling. And so, what brings you here today? What would you like to talk about? I'm looking for a hand or an unmute. Danielle, welcome.
Okay, I allowed all of you introverts two whole seconds for you to speak up. So patting myself on the back for that one.
Yes, good job. Good job.
Okay. So our church doesn't currently do anything sibling specific. So I'm looking like kind of where to start. But one of the I don't want to assume this, but I feel like this is maybe a thing that's common in America is busyness. And so I also don't want to necessarily start something that pulls siblings away from their home or from youth group. Like I'm thinking like the middle school age, upper elementary, middle school is probably a good place to start. So I don't really want to pull them away from what we already have going on, and I don't want to pull them out of their house another night. So are there creative things that you guys have done that's either like during a weekly ministry event or something that can be integrated into family life that doesn't put more of a load on parents? Do you know what I mean? Like I want to start something, but I don't want to create one more thing for kids and parents to do.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is how can we create this support or whatever it is without adding an additional program onto a family's already busy schedule. So, let's say we're talking about middle school age siblings. What could that look like? Yes, Betsy.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Good to see y'all again. I didn't hear the earlier part of the conversation, but just to jump in, so myself as a sibling of someone with disabilities, when I was in
Is
junior
it
high
at
and high
all
school.
possible for Betsy to get closer to her mic? I cannot hear a word you're saying.
Okay, can anybody else hear me, or is that a problem? Better now?
Mhm.
Okay,
I can hear you.
okay. And so, like from personal experience, as a sibling of someone with disabilities, when I was in church youth group, there was intentionality that I was unaware of. Some other like leaders, youth, so a year or two older than me, were intentional to take. They took my sister. So there are two people like teamed up. Someone took my sister, and someone was intentional to be with me to help me engage in the youth group ministry, as opposed to me taking care of my sister. And it was just embedded in, so it wasn't an extra thing, but their care for me, and their genuine care and love for my sister. I was like always watching, but she was well cared for, she was loved, she was engaged, and they really pursued helping me just be engaged in youth group and not have to worry about that. So that's a really simple, easy thing to not have to create a new program or system. Just like find and do some training for kind of your youth group leaders, whether adult or still in the youth, to bless the siblings and the individual disabilities.
I love that. So what I heard is that instead of, creating another program, um, so unknown to Betsy, or yeah, to Betsy, the church leaders were intentionally supporting her sibling, but then also kind of behind the scenes, were helping make sure that Betsy was being involved and knew that it's your sister, right? Your sister was being taken care of and supported. So it wasn't your responsibility at youth group to be in charge of your sister, and instead you could fully participate in the youth group programming. So I love that. I think that is a really excellent model. Thank you for sharing, Betsy. I'm going to call on Sarah, Sarah B.
So I absolutely agree with Betsy 100%. And I'll take it just maybe a half a step further. My son is a sibling to his older brother, and he grew up with it. So it's something he's so comfortable with. So now that we do like a buddy program at church, he wants to be a buddy now that he's a teenager. And so I let him, but I don't let him during certain times, like youth group time. I protect that so that he's not a buddy. Even if someone comes to youth group who's a person affected by disability, I don't let him buddy that person, because I think that that time needs to be really protected for him. So I do put limitations on how much I allow him to buddy.
So that's that's a very important thing for us to remember, because as we know, these siblings are truly uniquely gifted in their ability to come alongside individuals with disability. I mean, this is their life and they're really good at it. And so it's easy for us as ministry leaders to, tap on them to help out, to be a buddy. But it's really important that they are given, especially at that age, that middle school age, like they are given their time to, to grow in their faith, to be fully participative in whatever their peers are doing. So thank you, Sarah. That's a really good point. For
If I can
parents and
add one
ministry
thing
leaders
onto
to
that.
remember. Yeah, please.
Oh, I apologize. Sorry. Just wanted to add another thought onto Danielle's question. So at Johnny and Friends, we do family retreats. And one of the aspects that we do of that family retreat in Pennsylvania is we have a sibling group during the week. And so those siblings really connect hardcore during that week at family retreat. And so then we try to keep them connected throughout the year by doing Zoom calls, because they're usually too far away from each other. So we'll do like a monthly Zoom call for them, which, to Danielle's point, doesn't take them outside of the house, doesn't take them away from their family. Yes, it's one more thing to do, but it's relatively easy because it's right there at the house, but it still connects them to the other siblings that they connected so hard with at family retreat. So it's a big benefit.
Thank you. So I see that we've got a couple Johnny and Friends folks on this call. And for those of you who have not been to a Johnny and Friends family retreat before, it is a very, very special time and place. And I think the connections that happen within the different groups, so whether it's the moms or the siblings, like that's a very special time. And so I love this idea of continuing that connection, continuing those conversations via Zoom. So it's not a huge time commitment, not really pulling them from other things, but still allowing them to have, I mean, because that's a unique position. Being a sibling is a unique, only certain other people can identify with what you're going through. And so to have that time of connection, particularly for our, and again, I keep going to middle schoolers in my head just because that's just this very interesting time of life anyway. But there's, they've at the middle school age, they're given a lot of responsibility for their siblings, but they also have a lot of, growth that they personally need to do. So thank you. Raquel has her hand up.
Hi. So I don't necessarily have I guess my question is, and my comment is, and I would love to hear from people's perspective on this. I understand what you're saying. I'm a special needs mom, so I understand we're pulled, but you know, so often we're taking our special needs child to, you know, whether it's therapies, all these other things. And yes, while it may be another thing on a parent's plate, you know, sometimes I think the siblings may feel like, well, you know, my sibling gets to do all these extra things, you know, having something. And again, I know it's adding to potentially to the parents, but I would just be interested to hear what people's perspective was also like having something unique for them so they know like I'm seen, you know, there's something for me during whether it's once a month or a quarter or something, but there's something specific for me.
All right, well, I'm going to call on Melissa for this because according to the chat, they have something at their church specific for siblings. So, Melissa, why don't you answer Raquel's question?
Hi. Yeah. So we actually run a care and recovery program alongside our special needs ministry at our church. And so what we really find, let me first say that I am a sibling and myself. So growing up with a sibling, and I'm a parent. I have a son with disabilities as well. So and I'm a professional. So I work with it. I have kind of like a 360 view of everything that goes on. And really, what we know about kids is that who have siblings with disabilities is there's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of feelings of isolation, and a lot of feelings of I'm the only one, nobody gets it. The struggle is very real. And so, yes, like pulling them alongside and making youth leaders aware. I love that, Betsy, because youth leaders and children's ministry leaders need to be aware that their situation, it has a complexity to it that other kids don't have. So, along with other types of complexity. So we have kids of grief as well and kids of divorce, but we run a day camp during the summer that's just for 1 week where they are separated into the issues that they're coming with. So we have curriculum for children ages 6 to 18. And they're put into their own age group, and as they get older, gender as well, along with kids who also have siblings with disabilities. So our curriculum is called a sibling's journey, and there's an elementary age, there's a middle school age, and then once they get to like junior and senior year, it's called anchored, and it's actually multidisciplinary, multi-issue once they get to a certain age, so they can realize that suffering is a part of the human experience, and it's not just me, but other people go through things that are hard as well. But we've had a lot of success in making kids feel seen, feeling like they're not the only one. Over this past summer, it was the first year that we did middle school, and we had a lament jar. We had kids write their lament down and put it in a jar. And one middle school boy, he was 13, said after it was done, that felt so good to just say that. And so I think that we don't want to put another thing on parents, but to be able to take that child out and go, you're seen, you're heard, you're known, you're loved, and you're not the only one, not just by other people, but by a heavenly Father who cares for you. So that's our main way that we use that curriculum. But then we also, we're a multi-campus church. So if our campuses have a lot of families and kids that are struggling, they can run those curriculums at their campus, and they're only 9 weeks long. It's a 9-week curriculum. So we have found it works really, really well.
Thank you. Melissa, there's in the chat, is there any way you can share a link to the curriculum? Is it available for purchase? Are you able to share your scope and sequence for the 1-week camp? So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So if you want to,
What
if
I will
there's
do,
anything you can tell us or put in the chat.
what I will do is I will put my email in the chat. And if
Okay.
people just want to reach out to me, that's the easiest. We share a curriculum without it being purchased, we'll just share it with you. So yeah, just reach out to me and I'll help you with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to read it out loud, but if
Yeah, that's
anybody
great.
is not able, doesn't have access to the chat, you can email me at Beth, BETH, at Key Ministry, that's ministry with a Y, .org, and I will connect you with Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Lara, you have your hand up.
Yes, Melissa, thank you so much. That's awesome. And I'm loving this conversation. I'm both a parent to a middle schooler and an elementary age. My son is in second grade, and as well as our guy Graham with autism. So I was talking to a church probably 6 months ago, and they were asking me a couple questions about their next steps in ministry. They already had children's ministry set up and good to go with buddy system. But as we all know, they grow out of children's ministry and they move to middle school, right? And then adulthood. So this church, which I absolutely love how they were thinking, was like, okay, we're trying to make our 10-year plan here. What are we going to do about our growth that's happening? And we want to implement student and adult at the same time, seeing how much success we had in children's ministry. And here's what they did. They got into a room. This ministry leader was telling me, pastoral leadership, everybody, their whole church staff, and they said, since we see that the buddy system is going so well in our children's ministry, we not only want to create it in student and adults, we want to assign a buddy to the entire family. And what they did, and listen, this is for me, I can see this happening in my own life, just kind of like I think sometimes it just happens, right? Like my son's buddy comes to my other son's football games. She then takes my daughter out for coffee. So it happens but I thought like I could just see them in this room brainstorming, right? And going, we've seen something work really well. But then wait, the other component is siblings. Oh, the other component is the parents need a date night. Oh, the other component to this. So why don't we take this and say, you know what? If possible, if that buddy has the capacity to be that whole family's person, how awesome is that to where it, and so yeah, so that's what I wanted to add, because I know this conversation was going that way, is what an idea to be able to minister to the whole entire family with the same sort of things that we're implementing in disability ministry as well. So anyway, if this is the last time I'm going to talk, I just want to say thank you as a parent for church leaders, my middle schooler, and other my elementary kid is we're so thankful for the work you're doing for the whole family.
Well, and we thank you for the work you're doing, Lara. So no, thank you for sharing that. So there's so many things to say about this. I mean, not the least of which is that this church is thinking like, let's come up with a 10-year plan. That's fabulous. But no, but the fact that they had a buddy system that was working in children's ministry, and they're really thinking beyond, like, truly what is going to help a family go down that discipleship pathway and, be fully integrated into the church, and a buddy system might just be the way to do it. So in the chat, Sarah's sharing, it doesn't have to be one person ministering to the whole family. Some people feel totally lost where disability is concerned, but would be a great support to the typical siblings. Yes, that's a really good point. And just think how like each of those buddies could work together as a team to come alongside the family. Yeah, there's a lot. That's a lot of food for thought right there. I love it. Thank you. Yes, Trisha. And you're muted still.
Great. There we go.
There we go.
There are two things. The quickie is that I was kind of horrified. Some parents asked to meet with us about their daughter going to youth summer camp the first time, and they had stalled that so she could go to youth summer camp with her brother. And she's the oldest of 5, and he was the next one down. And the father talked about their son being the best tool for their daughter. And fortunately, the youth director has experience with special needs too, but it just made me cringe. He's not a tool. And so we ended up saying that we would make sure that maybe there was a set time when they get to see each other every day, but that we wanted to make other arrangements so he would enjoy youth camp. And actually what happened was there was that that family's mom knew another mom whose children were going to the camp, and that one had volunteered, and she ended up being kind of like the extra eyes making. And this young lady knew that she could check in, she could look over the room at the other mom, and they could kind of like give each other a signal like, are you doing okay or not? And it was a wonderful time. But oh my gosh, it made me realize, it just made me cringe, the idea of the tool.
Yeah.
But moving onward, when the siblings become adults, our daughter is very passionate about that. She's the younger sibling, 3.5 years of her brother, who's 30, 33, I guess. And so what was really interesting to her was, she never was really in a sibling group until her brother's inclusive theater group. The executive director decided to have a sibling group. And they would have this interesting format where my son and daughter would get on. They were both living in different states at the time. And there would be kind of like a check-in with everybody. And then they use the, like the artsy people who had some skill in facilitation. They would take out the people with special needs like my son. And then there would be, and I think the exec director did it herself. She was the facilitator for the Sibs. And that was really a blessing for my daughter. But she just was kind of sad that there isn't that kind of thing generally in a Christian setting. I mean, she kind of came back and said, gee, Mom, thank you that you've talked to me about stuff. And so that's one of the things that she's mentioned, that siblings need to know how they're going to be looking after their siblings when they're older. There's that transition of mom and dad can't take care of Johnny anymore. And sometimes I've had people call and like, mom all of a sudden died. Dad doesn't know what to do, and it gets left typically to like the oldest sibling daughter. But how do we prepare siblings to take over that role?
Yeah,
If
that's
there
a
isn't a
really
sibling, that's a whole nother very scary thing that I kind of oversee and pray about a lot, about people in in my circle.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right, everybody grows up. So, so first of all, quick question, the facilitated conversation that happened through the theater group, that was a Zoom
That
type,
was a Zoom.
right? Zoom
Yep.
with breakout rooms. Okay.
Yep.
So,
I mean, it was really incredible.
yeah,
She said,
and
thank you, Mom, that you talked to me about stuff about Peter.
right.
There were some siblings that totally clueless,
Yeah.
or especially the situation which Sarah maybe has seen in some of her work, the siblings in a different state. And then, well, gee, aren't they going to move Johnny to where I am? Well, Medicaid waiver doesn't transfer. And so all those things, it's really bad.
Yeah. So this is like a whole nother level. So as our, as the siblings become adults, and there's like an added layer of responsibility that is probably coming down the pike for the siblings. So how as churches can we facilitate those conversations, support those siblings? I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity here through like care groups, support groups to facilitate some of those conversations at our church. And I'm looking at Julie Meekins now because I'm going to say something, and Sylvia will remember this too. But that's hashtag pandemic blessing, that everybody knows how to use Zoom now.
Right.
And so, because like Trisha mentioned, like not every all siblings don't live in the same house or the same town. So, how can we, as churches, facilitate some of these conversations? Maybe it's bringing in experts or whatever, but offering those like facilitating those discussions. Maybe it is on Zoom to include siblings that live out of town. Thank you for sharing that, Trisha.
Sure.
Let's see. I'm gonna let's see. Nobody's hand is up at the moment, so I'm going to. There's people are very interested in the buddy system in the chat. So if anybody would like to share about that, but let me just read one more comment. So at my church in Brazil, we welcomed a 9-year-old girl with autism, level 3 support. She has an 11-year-old brother or sibling. The family attended our church for 2 consecutive Sundays, and the boy went to the kids' service, but he didn't want to stay away from his sister and father. So he watched the service, the inclusion room. In this case, we're gradually trying to get him to join the kids' service. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like this level of comfort, being with the siblings, right? So yeah, so sometimes it's hard to disengage the siblings, but thank you for coming alongside that family. All right, we've got Sarah B and then Andrea, and then Sarah S. Just let me know if you want to share at some point or if you want me to facilitate that. All right, Sarah B.
So I don't want to dominate the conversation at all, but I'm happy to at least start the conversation about buddy ministry and just kind of give like an overview. How it would look at a camp versus a church could be 2 different things, but at my church, we recently started one, and it's basically having a volunteer who is willing to be a one-on-one with, for example, in children's ministry, a child affected by disability who maybe can't participate by themselves and needs that one-on-one support to help them participate, help them be safe, help them communicate, just kind of help them be there in a way where they can be safe, their family can experience some respite during church, and the person can be discipled. And it doesn't have to be limited to children's ministry. It can go right on through adult. It really, not all people affected by disability need a one-on-one, but those who do, it could be really, really beneficial. It's one of the most powerful ways to support the entire family system, because once you put a buddy on the person affected by disability, then the rest of the family can be spiritually fed at church. They can serve in whatever way their spiritual giftings are. There's lots of different things that can happen. Maybe they can just sit and breathe, whatever the case may be, knowing that their person affected by disability is safe, being discipled, not just babysat, and and happy, well cared for, friended, all of that great stuff. So the one thing that I would say in a church situation is that as much as our friends with disabilities love consistency, I don't know that I've seen a church situation in which that's sustainable to have the same volunteer every week on the same person affected by disability. And so setting that up as an expectation right up front is helpful to avoid, so that you don't burn out your volunteers. If you can have 2 or 3 rotate throughout the month, it's fine. And the kids are adaptable. As much as they love routine, they do adapt. And then they've got more people that love them and more people that they love in return. And so it's just, at our church, as soon as we started our buddy ministry, one of our single moms immediately accepted Jesus and was baptized because she was finally able to sit and experience and understand and respond. And so that's just how powerful buddy ministry can be.
Yeah, so it's serving the one individual, but it's really serving the family. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. You did a great job of defining the buddy system. Thank you. Andrea and then Sarah S.
Well, I happen to have twins, so my one with a disability, so her brother was never really able to get away from that, right? They're in the same grade, they're in the same youth group, all of that, but they're now actually both in college. My daughter's in a supported environment in college, but and it's interesting to have him look back. I was just on a family panel with him and him talking about it. And yet other siblings had very different experiences than my son. And we're doing a Bible study now for moms and wanting to resource them. And I think I'm hoping one way we can support them as the church is to provide them some materials about what that should look like, not, parentifying your sibling. How do you handle the talks about, yeah, what's that going to look like in the future if they need to be a guardian? What are those boundaries? So those things for parents, trying to help parents navigate that, because it is hard when you're trying to figure all of it out. So I'm not sure if anybody has any like materials or just kind of like a couple of one-pagers that would be helpful to parents that we could either hand out or we could discuss in the Bible study or that sort of a thing. But I think that that would be helpful to really not only support the sibling, but support the parents through, kind of like what's best practices, how should that really look? Because I know there's probably many of us who have, children who look back and think, oh, I wish I would have done a few things, differently. So, yeah.
So thank you for raising those ideas and questions and looking for tools. I know that several years back, I mean, like at least maybe 3, 4, 5 years, maybe more, Key Ministry did a webinar on like parentification, which, when you're putting adult size responsibilities on the sibling. So that might be worth going back and finding. Yeah, but if anybody else has like materials to share, resources to share, I think that would be fantastic. All right, I'm going to call on Sarah and then Sylvia, and then I'll read from the chat.
Okay, I have a quick comment that's not related to what I'm about to pop in the chat, and then a second kind of topic. So, the first one is that a lot of families who have at least one child with a disability, have difficulty getting that child out the door. So anything the church can do that kind of removes that obstacle, whether it's like a volunteer picking the sibling up or like stuff like that, is helpful to making sure that the sibling still gets to fully participate. Because like if there's one parent with 3 kids and you can't get the one kid out the door, the other 2 don't get to go. So that is separate from the thing that I just popped in the chat, which is a concept that's still mostly in its infancy. But I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the concept of bravery beads that are given to children who are in hospital receiving medical treatment. This would be a similar concept that recognizes the contributions of the siblings of those children. And it would be tied to a discussion on fruits of the spirit. So I've got a Google Doc about specific experiences that would be paired in it, but I'm kind of looking at the logistics of that kind of program, if anybody has input on it. And if you would like to add specific examples, please add those directly in the doc.
So Sarah has shared the link in the chat. And the idea is, let me see if I can remember an example. So let's say there's like a birthday party or something that the sibling's really excited to go to, but then their sister or brother has like a therapy appointment or a meltdown or something that prohibits the sibling from attending, like they've given up that fun opportunity. And that's an experience that is kind of recognized and validated. And I think what Sarah's kind of mulling over right now is logistically, what would this look like? So, okay. And there's lots going on in the chat right now describing this. So I encourage you to read through that. And I know Sarah would love any ideas or feedback that you have on this idea. So I'll let that one kind of simmer for a little bit. You can think about that. And I'm going to call on Sylvia. Sarah, thank you for sharing. And I look forward to hearing more about this as we go on. Sylvia.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. Two things about the buddies. I don't really call what we do a buddy program, but we offer buddy support to any family that is coming in with children, 2 children maybe. Our buddy support usually happens like during our Sunday school hour, and we also offer respite. So during our respite time, we have opportunities for the individual, the child, or the adult with a disability to be supported in their own program while we do activities for the siblings. Buddies also serve as an opportunity for inclusion for an individual who we feel and the parent feels are ready to go into a neurotypical class with their same age peers. So we offer buddy support so that they can, and they don't really have to do anything. Sometimes they're just there to sit and redirect. We also allow siblings sometimes or other children to come into our Sunday school classes because we use them as reverse inclusion opportunities. So that if we want a certain behavior or something for the other children to do, not to necessarily assist a sibling, but to just be there. Because when I allow a sibling to come into the room, they are given the instruction that they are there to assist me. They're not there to assist the sibling, but to assist in handing out papers, handing out crayons, or just an opportunity for them to be a part of what has already taken place.
Nice.
That's
Thank
what
you
we do.
for sharing. And yeah, so Sylvia runs a pretty fantastic operation. So thank you for sharing that. And the whole idea of reverse inclusion, there's some really cool things there too. So thank you for sharing that model. I want to share two things that came to mind. So my church does a respite night quarterly as well. And ours is open for the child with a disability and his or her siblings as well. And we provide buddies for the siblings too. So that every kid gets to just have like the most fun with we tend to, when possible, we tend to give the quote typical sibling, like that term or not, but you're the sibling of the child with a disability, okay? We try to give them someone close in age, but if they're young, like we don't want to just make a 6-year-old a buddy, but I love it when a parent and a younger child both want to serve, so we'll pair them up. And so the 6-year-old can be the buddy to the other 6-year-old, but you have the parent supervising as well. So give them fun too, give the siblings a fun evening too. And then the other thing I wanted to say is like just acknowledge the sibling. Like don't so when the family comes to pick up the kid from whatever your disability ministry environment looks like, or whatever Sunday school looks like, but like look the sibling in the eye and just, hey, how's it going? And just acknowledge they're a kid too, right? So yeah, so Sarah's sharing in the chat. The funny thing is often the typical sibling is far from typical. In fact, some have significant challenges that just stand out less than the disabled sibling. And for those of you that can't see the screen, I'm doing a lot of air quoting over here. So hopefully you heard that in my voice. All right. Would anybody else like to share? And Lara, did I miss anything in the chat? No. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so I'm gonna, Betsy, I hope it's okay if I read what you're saying. I'm so happy to hear this conversation about parentification. Growing up with a twin sister with severe disabilities and medical crises who then passed away when we were 14. We did not talk about it as a family. God has brought me so much healing in the last 30 years, but it has taken 30 when it probably didn't have to. Do churches with disability ministries also offer family therapy or intentionally help facilitate conversations within a family? Sibling support is great. Taking the sibling out of the immediate proximity and care of their disability affected sibling and allowing the sibling to be a normal kid for a bit is great. And how can we look at the family as a whole process? Thank you for sharing, Betsy. I mean, this is a really important perspective. Thank you. Anybody like to comment on that? Yeah, Danielle.
So I'm sorry, Betsy, that you had to go through that, and that's part of your story. Thank you for sharing it, and thank you for honoring her memory by sharing that. One of the things that I do is I try to lean heavy on departments that exist for the adults of our church. So like we have, a care ministry, which is generally for people who have people who pass away, and generally those are older people. And so they generally work with adults, but I will lean, I mean, unfortunately, I've had to use them twice in my career to come alongside of me as I'm ministering to these families, and not even necessarily to pass them off, but just to like get more people onto this family's care team. And then if I find out, this is a little bit more indirect for what you were saying, but like if I find out from one of my family is that there's a crisis in the family and it's not even necessarily related to disability, but sometimes it is. I make sure that I let the student minister know and the children's ministry person know and the family pastor know. That way, we can all kind of be on board together of caring for this family. But I would just say, like, just to answer, how can we care for the whole family through the whole process? Like, we have to lean on our coworkers because we can't walk with every family through every difficulty. So don't be afraid to share the load with your staff. That's what they're there for. And if you don't have that, get a colleague. Get somebody to walk alongside with you because we can't do this by ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Danielle. Do any of you have what you feel is like a care team in place at your church? Yeah, and Sarah's sharing, she doesn't see leaning on existing ministries as passing them off. Again, I'm air quoting here. As long as you're staying involved. So why reinvent the wheel? Yeah, I mean, there are some people in our networks, whether they're, paid staff or maybe they're, a volunteer team, but who are really good at what their particular niche is. And yes, so why reinvent the wheel if we can partner together with ministries who are specializing in certain areas of care so we can come alongside the family as a whole. But I love the idea of working with your colleagues, whether, again, I realize we've got paid staff and we have churches where a lot of this is volunteer, but where we're really working together to come alongside a family and the various needs that the family may have. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, Park.
I think another thing that we can all look at to do better as far as siblings and families is taking kind of what Sandra Peoples has done with that, having a family care plan on the
Yes.
front end and really having the family fill out, who can we contact if something happens, and knowing each piece of the family so that we do have that opportunity to really be able to plug into and help them in ways that are beneficial to them. And just giving them the support that way, even on the front end, so that they know on the front end that if something were to happen, the church hopefully would come alongside.
Thank you for bringing that up. And I was mentally sending messages to Lara. Hey, Lara, please try to find the link. And yes, she did it. Thank you, folks. What a team here. So, yes, please do go to sandrapeoples.com to check out the family care plan. So the link is in the chat. And we'll be sure to post that link too when we post the video. And Tony's sharing in the chat that he thinks it's good that the person with disability learn that siblings love them, but also it's good for them to have friends and activities that don't always involve the person with a disability. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, this has been a great discussion. Any last minute? All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time today. We will post the recording and send you some follow-up in the next week or so. Also, for those of you who are on right now or who watch the recording soon, know that the deadline to apply to be a speaker for Disability in the Church 2026 is coming in hot. So please visit keyministry.org to get information about the conference that's happening in April and how you can apply. So two more things. Don has posted in the chat, does this get harder or easier in the teen years for the siblings? So if anybody wants to tackle that. And Sarah, you have your hand up.
Okay, so I'll start with answering Dawn's question. Not necessarily, but it does get different. And Beth, can you link the Google Doc that I sent out in the recording notes when it gets published?
Yes.
So that
Yes, we
people
will
who
do that.
aren't on
Yes.
today can participate as well?
Yes, we will do that. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Any other? All right. I appreciate you. Lara and I appreciate you and all that you are doing for the families and just making our churches more welcoming and just be in the hands and feet of Jesus. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next month, third Wednesday of the month. Thanks, everybody.